Chapter 4. Knock. Knock. Who's spying? Fort Gray, Gotham. The Wilders' new home. Ryan winced as she lifted a box, the movement aggravating her bruised ribs. She glanced over at Sophie, who was gingerly touching her swollen jaw as she surveyed the overflowing boxes in their new living room. You could practically taste the awkwardness, their nasty tussle leaving behind a bunch of stinging cuts and throbbing contusions. Sophie caught her eyes and quickly looked away, busying herself with a stack of books. She was still sulking about being thrown from a car by someone who wasn't even tall enough to ride roller coasters by themselves. Ryan set her box down with a grunt, the cuts on her arms still stinging. She felt mildly guilty as she took in Sophie's beat-up face, but she remembered that she had handprints that were still around her throat and pushed all that remorse down. At least their new arrangement came with top-notch health insurance. They were definitely going to need it. So, she broke the silence with a strained, pained voice. Where do you want these books? Wherever. I don't really care. Sophie shrugged, looking everywhere else but her. This was going to be harder than Ryan thought. She had hoped that moving into their new home would be a fresh start, a chance to put the past, the other night, behind them, and focus on their new job. As they continued to unpack in silence, Ryan stole glances at her new partner. Despite the bruises and the bitchy expression, there was something absorbing about Sophie that Ryan couldn't quite put her finger on. Sophie, too, watched her partner out of the corner of her eye when she wasn't looking. The way she moved, the focused expression on her face, it was clear that Ryan was no ordinary woman, a criminal woman, but unordinary nonetheless. Look, Ryan said, leaning forward over a crate. I know this isn't ideal. We both got our asses handed to us, and now we're supposed to play Barbie and Ken as if nothing happened. But the truth is, we're in this together, whether we like it or not. And how do you propose we do that? Forget about everything and start fresh? No, we can't forget. But we can try to understand, to see each other as more than targets or enemies. Sophie was quiet for a while, but finally she spoke. I'm not sure I know how to do that. Me neither, but we can figure it out together. Sophie politely nodded, neatly stacking her records on the wall for later. The new place had a vintage record player in the living room that she couldn't wait to get her hands on. Ryan noticed the vinyl records. She couldn't remember the last time she'd seen anything like them. Just how old was this woman? Her curiosity heightened when Sophie pulled out a stack of old mixtapes, each labeled with the names of iconic rappers like Tupac, Biggie, Snoop Dogg, Jay-Z, and Nas. I didn't peg you for a hardcore rap fan, Ryan teased while she held up a DJ Clue mixtape. There's a lot you don't know about me. I grew up listening to these guys. Their lyrics, the realness, it spoke to me. They spoke to you? Ryan smirked. What? Were you out there slanging bricks in the streets of Brooklyn or something? Sophie cracked up and lost it, laughing her ass off at Ryan's assumption. Ryan was thrown for a loop by her cackling fit, but gosh, if that laugh wasn't contagious. Even seeing the small smile on her face, which didn't happen much, put her in a better headspace. Ryan looked at her face for a moment. Were those dimples? Okay, Ryan, get it together. She mentally chastised herself before turning her attention back to her box. She reached inside and pulled out a worn leather journal filled with pages of her own poetry and sketches. She flipped through the sheets, lost in thought, as she read over some of her happiest moments and darkest times. Sophie, being the nosy and taller person she was, peeked over Ryan's head. But the shorter woman instantly snapped the journal shut, feeling her presence. I never took you for the introspective type. You want to share with the class? No, Ryan quickly replied. But something about Sophie's genuine interest made her want to open up. After a second, she added, maybe, if you promise not to slam me around like a rag doll again. Sophie was about to come back with, "I can't make any promises," but the sound of the doorbell ringing interrupted them. They both froze, confused and immediately on edge. "Do you think it's Luke?" "I hope it's not some surprise mission." Sophie reached behind her back and pulled out a Glock tucked into her waistband. "You had that on you the whole time?" "I sleep with a smaller one under my pillow," Sophie replied, as if it were no big deal. Ryan was perplexed, but then the doorbell started ringing again, followed by persistent knocking. Sophie cautiously approached the door, with Ryan right beside her. The door swung open, revealing a woman with a wide smile and an eclectic fashion sense that seemed to span multiple eras. Her shoulder-length blonde hair was styled with uneven bangs, and her blue eyes shined under the theatrical makeup. She leaked a magnetic yet slightly unhinged spirit. Well, well, well. If it isn't the mysterious new couple gracing our humble neighborhood. I'm Alice, your friendly neighbor, and president of the Fort Gray Resident Welcoming Committee. She gestured dramatically to her own house across the street. The outside was a complex pattern of colors and unconventional decor. Sophie and Ryan exchanged a glance, both thinking the same thing. Alice zeroed in on the bruises peeking out from under their clothes and across their faces. "Oh my, it looks like someone's been having a little too much fun in the bedroom. You know, I always say, a couple that plays together stays together." Ryan blushed and she opened her mouth to protest, but the older woman was already moving on. "You know, this house has been on the market for ages. I was starting to think it was cursed or something. So tell me, what do you two do for a living that allows you to afford such lovely digs?" Ryan and Sophie traded a panicked look, their minds trying to come up with a plausible cover story. "We're, butchers," Ryan blurted out, immediately regretting her choice of fake profession. "Butchers, you say? How fascinating." "Yeah, we own a few processing plants throughout the city." Sophie jumped in, trying to salvage the situation. "It's a family business passed down through generations." "Oh, how delightful. You know, I've always had a bit of a fascination with the art of butchery. The precision, the skill, the way the knife slices through flesh like butter. I once dated a butcher, you know. He had the most amazing hands, so strong and skilled. And the things he could do with a carving knife, well, let's just say it was an experience I'll never forget." Sophie's eyes dilated, and she took an involuntary step back. Ryan, meanwhile, looked like she was struggling to hold in a chuckle. Alice's train of thought moved on, and she thrust a homemade apple pie toward them. "Consider this a sweet treat to mark your arrival in our little slice of paradise. I can't remember if this was the poison pie I left out for the rats or not, but hey, it's not going to kill you, right?" She let out a high-pitched laugh, leaving the couple unsure if she was joking or not. "I'm so excited. We're practically roomies." Sophie accepted the pie, looking like she'd swallowed a lemon. "Thank you, but you're not our Alice cut her off and leaned in conspiratorially, now whispering. "So tell me, my little lovebirds, how long have you been munching carpets?" "Excuse me?" Sophie was ready to throw this woman back into her clown house with her pie. Ryan, on the other hand, was already intrigued by how easily Alice's over-the-top antics got under Sophie's skin. "We're actually newlyweds." Alice clapped her hands together and saw their matching wedding bands. "Oh, how delightful. I do love a good romance." She then turned to Ryan, scanning her from head to toe. "And you, my dear, what's your secret to getting the tall one here too, as the 2008 pop culture phenomenon that changed the world says, put a ring on it?" "Oh, you know." Ryan forced an uncomfortable laugh. "It's my natural charm and good looks." Sophie tightened her grip on the door handle, watching the interaction. Something in Alice's voice and eyes toward Ryan rubbed Sophie the wrong way. Her patience was wearing thin, and her eye twitched as she tried to maintain a polite front. "We appreciate the warm welcome, Alice, but we really should be getting back to what we were doing. Busy day ahead of us." "Leaving so soon?" Alice pouted. And just when things were getting interesting, she turned her attention back to Ryan. "You know, if you ever need a break from Miss Bossy Pants and all that domestic bliss, my door is always open. I make a mean martini, and I'm an excellent listener." Internally, Sophie counted down to 10 to tame herself. No way she'd hand Alice the W by letting her jealousy show. Ryan, for her part, took a step back from Alice's advances. "Thanks for the offer, but I think we're good. Lots of unpacking still to do. You know how it is." "Alas, the trials and tribulations of married life. Well, if you change your mind, you know where to find me." With a wink and a bow, Alice spun on her heel and skipped back to her own house, leaving the couple standing in the doorway, dumbfounded. "Well, she's certainly something." Ryan headed to the kitchen, placing the pie on the counter and looking for a knife in the expansive space. Sophie still looked across the street at their new neighbor. She finally closed the door with more force than necessary and followed Ryan inside. "I don't trust her. She's too nosy for her own good." "Maybe, but you have to admit, she's a character." Ryan leaned in to inspect the pie, sniffing it cautiously. "You don't think she actually poisoned this, do you?" Still, she shrugged to herself, poking her finger in the pie. Sophie opened her mouth to comment on Ryan's unsanitary actions, but the words died on her tongue. She watched her slowly lick the sugary apple filling off her finger. The way she let her tongue glide, enjoying the syrupy sweetness, Sophie felt stuck, mesmerized. Ryan caught her staring and smirked but didn't comment. Sophie quickly turned away. Interested herself by opening the cabinets in search of coffee mugs, she could feel Ryan staring into her back as she rummaged through the kitchen, embarrassed. After opening what felt like every cabinet in the room, she finally found the mugs. She held one up victoriously, turning to face Ryan. "Coffee? Actually, I'm more of a tea drinker." "Tea? Really?" "Yeah, there's something soothing about it. It helps me relax after a long day of breaking into politicians' bank accounts." Sophie didn't know what to say, so she just shook her head. With confidence, she approached the coffee machine, her fingers hovering over the buttons and dials. She had used plenty of fancy coffee makers in her time, but this one looked like it belonged in a Google office. As soon as she hit the start button, the machine let out a high-pitched whine, followed by a series of loud beeps. Sophie frowned, jabbing at the buttons more forcefully. "Come on, you stupid thing." Suddenly, a jet of water shot out of the machine, drenching her from head to toe. She let out a yelp of surprise, jumping back as the machine continued to sputter and hiss. "Here, let me help." Ryan leaped up, pushing past a wet Sophie and fiddling with the machine's settings. But her efforts only seemed to make things worse. The machine let out a final deafening shriek before exploding in a shower of more hot water and coffee grounds, covering both women in a layer of swampy, caffeinated mess. For a moment, they stood there, blinking at each other in shock. Then slowly, a grin spread across Ryan's face. "Well, I guess you'll be having tea instead." After getting cleaned up and changed, Ryan and Sophie continued their exploration of the luxurious brownstone, stunned at each new discovery. The living room had floor-to-ceiling windows, modular white couches, and thought-provoking art used to spark conversation. Outside, the backyard was a shelter of plants and good times, which was right up Ryan's alley, and an outdoor kitchen made for barbecues. In the study, for focused work or quiet reflection, complete with a vintage wooden desk that invited serious contemplation and shelves lined with books begging to be read. The entertainment room was a playground for the senses, with a large leather sectional that could fit a small army. A top-of-the-line entertainment system that promised endless hours of fun, a pool table that called out for friendly competition, and a well-stocked bar that hinted at gatherings to come. The movie room on the third level was a movie's buff dream, with tiered seating that made you feel like you were part of the action. On the expansive screen, surrounded by furnishings that transported you to another world. As they descended to the basement and into one of many hidden rooms, Ryan and Sophie stepped into a world straight out of a spy thriller blockbuster. The tactical room was alive with classified info, moody lighting, and polished workstations stocked with hardcore tech, collapsible batons that jumped to attention with a flick, a grappling hook launcher that could have been a comic book hero's sidekick, and boots sporting shock absorbers that basically said "fuck you" to gravity. "Damn, this place is bigger than my old apartment," Sophie remarked, not sure where to start. "Yo, Soph, check this out." Ryan snatched up the chameleon gloves and slipped them on. She pressed her palms against the stainless steel table. Quickly, her hands vanished, blending with the metallic surface. Ha! Invisible hands. It's like a secret agent's wet dream. Sophie was intrigued, but she had her eye on the compact pistols to threatening assault rifles. The collection was a soldier's dream come true. This is quite the setup. She ran her fingers along the barrel of a sniper rifle. Could take out targets from a mile away with this beauty. Ryan, still geeking out over the gadgets, held up a pair of augmented reality glasses. These are next level. Thermal imaging, night vision, facial recognition. It's like having a supercomputer strapped to your face. Careful, Wilder. Don't want to fry your brain with all that tech. Please, Ryan said, putting on the glasses and striking a dramatic pose. My brain can handle anything. I'm like Iron Man, but sexier and black, and a woman. Turning back to the weapons, Sophie's mind wandered to the revelation that Ryan had never made a kill. Her cavalier attitude towards the lethal weaponry was concerning. This wasn't a game for her. So she handed Ryan a gun and said, "Take this. We need to start your training now." Ryan eyed the weapon with uncertainty. "What? We just spent the whole day unpacking. I'm beat." "You should never be too tired to train, soldier." The word slipped out before she could catch herself. A saying of her military past. Ryan stared at her as if she had grown a second and third head. "Sorry," Sophie mumbled, shaking her head. "Old habits." Aye, Captain," Ryan mocked salute. "Should I drop and give you 52? Letting out a small sigh, Sophie's posture deflated somewhat. She had to admit she was still working on getting a feel for who this woman really was. Ryan was unlike anyone she had worked with before. Their backgrounds couldn't be more different. They approached things from completely distinct mindsets. Where Sophie saw discipline and protocol, Ryan saw rules to be broken. And if the younger woman couldn't rise to the occasion, it could mean life or death for both of them. "This is serious, Wilder. What you told me last night about never making a kill has me worried, to be honest. So I need you to get in line and be serious about your training. I'm not some rookie agent you can boss around, you know." Ryan sat the gun down on the table. "This isn't about bossing you around. It's about keeping us both alive out there." "I can handle myself just fine. Thank you very much." "Can you? We're not going to be only breaking into data systems. There are bad guys out there with weapons that are bigger than you." "What does my height have to do with this?" "Ugh, you're deflecting. Listen, I need reassurance that you've got my back when we're in the field. That you can make those hard, fast decisions that could be the line between us coming back safe or coming back in a body bag." Ryan was ready to fire back, but she ended up biting her tongue. She knew Sophie's idea of facing physical danger head-on was alarming, even if her approach was frustrating. They were strangers thrown together by circumstance, They came from different worlds, different backgrounds, different ways of life. For one night, they had been enemies, each tasked with eliminating the other in a deadly game of cat and mouse. They had fought tooth and nail, each determined to come out on top. And now they were married, confined together by a piece of paper and a set of rings, playing the role of a happy couple preparing to face the dangers and challenges of their new life together. Sophie was still getting used to the whole arranged situation. It was highly unorthodox, even for someone like her, who was accustomed to unconventional circumstances. It was a strange and surreal situation, one that neither of them had ever imagined they would find themselves in. With a huff, Ryan picked up the gun again, her hands feeling clumsy and unfamiliar with its weight. "Fine," she said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "Let's go, Commander." The gun kicked back hard, nearly smacking Ryan in the face as she squeezed the trigger. "Shit!" she stumbled, the weapon slipping from her sweaty grip. She was trying her best, damn it, but it was clear Ryan had a long way to go before she could be the kind of partner Sophie needed in the field. How was she supposed to watch her back when she could barely handle a gun? "You're holding it wrong. Here, let me show you." Sophie stepped behind her, molding her body against her, wife's back. "Relax, you need to be loose, not rigid." Her hand slid down Ryan's arms, repositioning her grip on the gun. "Like this, see? Firm, but not tight." "Right. Loose. Got it." Ryan swallowed hard, trying to focus on the weapon, and not the warm body behind her. She was aware that Sophie wasn't purposely trying to rile her up. This was simply her, in her element, with her guard down as mentor and guide. They were still working out the kinks, but Ryan found it hard not to be attracted to this side of her. The confident strength in her hands, the power in her muscles. Sophie was sexy as hell, okay? And this was a woman who knew her way around a weapon. It was intimidating and arousing. Lost in thought, she barely registered when Sophie's fingers brushed against one of her tattoos, but she definitely noticed the pause, the touch remaining on the inked skin. "Exactly. How many tattoos do you have?" 18. "Whoa." Sophie was clearly impressed. Her eyes traced the outline of a particular tattoo, a 4-letter script that read, Cora. "Is this an X or something?" "It's for my mom," she said quietly, Ryan's voice rougher than she planned. "My adoptive mom, Cora. She passed away years ago." Looking sympathetic, Sophie placed her hand tenderly on her arm to soothe her. "I'm so sorry. Losing someone you love, it's a special kind of pain." Yeah, it is." Ryan cleared her throat. "What about you? Any ink I should know about?" "No tattoos, but I do have my own scars." Sophie tapped her chest right over her heart, where a faded gunshot wound was. "I was hit trying to save my best friend in the service. The doc said the bullet ricocheted off my sternum, missed my heart by millimeters. My friend, however, didn't make it, and I shouldn't have either. But I guess I had a guardian angel watching out for me that day." "I don't know." The fear, the distress, the helplessness, it's like she was right back on the battlefield. She remembered the sound of the gunshots, the smell of the smoke, and the sight of her friend's lifeless body, while she herself was bleeding out and struggling to breathe. Ryan saw the suffering in her eyes as she talked about her best friend, and the guilt she still carried for not being able to save her, and still to come so close to death, to have your life hanging in the balance like that. She imagined that was a defining moment in Sophie's life, one that has probably shaped her into who she is today. "Sophie, I'm so sorry. That's a heavy burden to carry. It changed me in ways I'm still trying to understand. And it's not something you ever really get over. You just, learn to live with it, I guess. I had many years of therapy afterward. I'm better now. Physically, somewhat emotionally. But what about you? How did you deal with the loss? Sophie asked softly. After your mom passed, I mean. Ryan looked away, feeling ashamed. The truth was, she hadn't dealt with Cora's death in a healthy way at all. Instead of seeking therapy or support, she'd thrown herself into even riskier crimes with Angelique, chasing the adrenaline high to numb the pain. It was the complete opposite of what her mama would have wanted for her, and Ryan knew it. But at the time, she'd been too lost in her own grief and anger to care. She opened her mouth, trying to find the words to explain, but before she could speak, a sudden chime interrupted the heavy moment, coming from another room in the basement they had yet to explore. The room was set up like a command center, with maps, computers, and large screens covering the walls. A holographic screen materialized in the air before them. Luke's apathetic face coming into focus. "Agents," he greeted, his voice businesslike. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "No, sir," Sophie replied professionally. "I see you two are settling into your new living arrangements," Luke observed. Seeing the two women, relaxed. "I trust there haven't been any major domestic squabbles that might compromise your focus?" "We're adjusting well, sir." "Good, because I have some important information regarding your communication protocols for upcoming missions." He held up a small, nondescript device that looked like a simple earpiece. "This is the Quantum Encrypted Communicator, or QEC for short. It allows for secure, untraceable communication between you and the agency. You'll find a pair in the drawer behind you." Ryan edged to the front of her seat, captivated by the state-of-the-art communicator. "How does it work?" "The QEC utilizes quantum entanglement to transmit data. Essentially, it creates an unbreakable encryption that can't be intercepted or decoded by any known means." "And how often are we expected to check in using the QEC?" "At a minimum, before and after a mission. But in case of emergencies, you'll use a specific set of codes to alert us to your situation." He rattled off a series of complex codes and phrases, which Ryan committed to memory with adept ease. They asked a few clarifying questions to ensure they fully understood the protocols. "Hey, Fox," Ryan chimed in. "Quick question. Can your face just pop up in any room? Like, even our bedrooms?" No, he stammered, waving his hands in front of him. "Only this room, the command center. This isn't Big Brother. We would never invade your privacy like that." Ryan grinned, liking seeing their normally cool-headed boss looking so tense. Sophie threw her a warning. As the call ended and Luke's image faded, Sophie cracked her neck. "All right, let's get back to training." "Damn it, I thought you would have forgotten." About an hour later, as Ryan took aim at the target once more, she couldn't resist a little shit-talking. "You know, I think I'm getting pretty good at this." She squeezed off a shot that landed right outside the bullseye. "A few more sessions, and I might even be better than you, hotshot." "Don't get cocky, Wilder. Real life is a lot more challenging than shooting shots in our basement." "Care to put your money where your mouth is?" Sophie had to catch herself from making an ill-timed joke about her mouth. So instead, she said, "What did you have in mind?" "One shot. If I hit the bullseye, you buy dinner tonight. If I miss, I'll buy dinner for a week." "Let's see what you've got." In her room, Ryan flopped onto the bed, pulled out her phone, and scrolled through her contacts, pausing for a moment before dialing her best friend's number. As the phone rang, Ryan took a deep breath, preparing herself for the conversation ahead. Thankfully, it went to voicemail. "This is Iris. Sorry I can't get to your call right now. Leave a message after the beep." Beep. "Hey, Riss, it's me. Look, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I wanted to let you know that, I'll be out of commission for a while. Yeah, I kind of joined a cult, and I know, it's wild. But they promised enlightenment and a lifetime supply of energy drinks. So I couldn't resist. Ryan paused for a snigger. Anyway, don't worry about me. I'll be fine. I'll reach out when I'm back in the real world. Take care, and don't do anything I wouldn't do. Meanwhile, in the other bedroom, Sophie paced back and forth, her phone pressed to her ear as she talked to her sister. A retreat? Is everything okay? Yeah, everything's fine, Sophie assured her. It's just, I feel like I need some time to disconnect and focus on myself. It's one of those silent meditation retreats, so I won't be able to take calls or messages. She bit her lip, waiting for her sister's response. She knew her sister. The silence meant she was trying to piece things together, and she didn't need Jordan to use her big brain to figure things out. Jor, I promise it's nothing bad. I just need a break from everything, you know? Wait a minute. I know what's going on. Sophie pulled back her window shade and glanced outside, eyeing the neighborhood. She could see a bodega on the corner, a woman pushing a stroller and chatting animatedly on her phone in Spanish, and a group of kids playing tag on the sidewalk. But the true movement that caught her eye was her oddball neighbor who was digging a hole in her front lawn. What the Did you meet a girl? Is that what this is about? That brought Sophie back to the present. No girl involved, she said, walking back to her bed, forcing a laugh and thinking about her new wife. It's gonna be only me and my own thoughts for a while. Man, Soph, I'm gonna need you to find a BAE one of these days, Jordan teased. You can't be married to your job forever. Sophie rolled her eyes, betraying her amusement. Well, not all of us can fall in love with our college sweetheart like you and Dante. Hey, when you know, you know. Sophie could practically hear Jordan's smile in her voice. Speaking of, I gotta tell you about this dope spot he took me to the other night. She lay back on the bed as she listened to her sister talk about her boyfriend. She felt awful about not telling her the truth. She wanted to open up about her new job and partner, or wife, but she knew spilling the beans about their pretend marriage could mess up their jobs and lives. Her sister continued to gush about how attentive and thoughtful Dante was, and Sophie was truly happy for them. Her sister deserved all the love and joy in the world, but a small selfish part of her yearned for that same kind of connection. That soul-deep promise with another person. And then when we got back to the hotel room, he had rose petals scattered all over the bed. Can you believe it? I swear I almost... Okay. I don't think I need to hear about all of that. Later that night, Ryan and Sophie sat cross-legged on the living room floor, surrounded by takeout containers from Cafe Hunan's, the best Chinese place in the neighborhood. Ryan masterfully wielded her chopsticks, plucking noodles with an expertise that bordered on showing off. Sophie, on the other hand, struggled to get a grip on the slippery wooden utensils. You know, for someone with your skills, you'd think you could handle a pair of chopsticks. Ryan popped a piece of orange chicken into her mouth with a grin. Sophie stared at her, but there was no real heat behind it. Hey, I bought the damn food, didn't I? Even if someone cheated. Please, I didn't cheat. I didn't know I was over the line. Your big head was in my way. Slander and lies, Sophie declared, finally managing to snag a piece of broccoli between her chopsticks. She lifted it to her mouth with a triumphant flourish. I am a woman of honor and integrity. I'll have you know. Sure. Ryan reached for another container. So I told my best friend I joined a cult. You? My sister thinks I'm at a silent meditation retreat. I think yours might be more believable, though. Hey. Ryan rolled her eyes hard, acting all butthurt. Sophie just grunted comically and gave her that girl bye head shake. They fell into a comfortable silence. The only sounds were the clink of chopsticks against containers and the soft dialogue from the TV. Ryan broke the silence again after a while. "So what's your story? What brought you to the mysterious agent lifestyle, if you don't mind me asking?" Sophie tightened her grip on her chopsticks. She knew Ryan was just trying to make conversation, to get to know her better, but old habits die hard, and her instinct was always to guard her personal life like a state secret. "I needed a change after the Crows. I was struggling financially afterward, and freelancing wasn't cutting it, so Black Bat is giving me stability." "But there's more to it, isn't there? For you, I mean." Ryan's perception surprised Sophie. She didn't expect her to read between the lines like that. "Yeah, I guess there is. I needed to excel on my own terms. To show what a gay Black woman can do in this field. No caveats or asterisks." "I respect that," Ryan said seriously. "What about you? What's your angle? Would you believe me if I said it was the 401k match?" At Sophie's unimpressed look, Ryan ceded. "Nah, it's a shot at a fresh start for me. A chance to make things right after all the shit I've done. I've always been the one everyone underestimated. But I know I got mad skills. I know I can run circles around most of these suits. Black Bat's elite program was a chance to level up, to show the world what I can really do when I'm not holding back. And let's be real, the access to shiny tech don't hurt. I've been mostly behind a desk working for them on the lower tier." Nice. I hope it works out for you." "Nice. I hope it works out for you. What type of shit is that? Doesn't she know she's half the reason if it will work out or not?" But Ryan kept her thoughts to herself, reminding herself that building trust took time. Sophie didn't seem too keen on driving the discussion forward. She'd have to take the lead if she wanted to keep it going. "So, what about your family? Parents? You mentioned your sister. Is that your only sibling?" Sophie weighed her options silently while Ryan, seemingly sensing her discomfort to talk about family, shrugged and reached for an egg roll. "You know I can pull up your profile, right?" "Shit." Sophie swore under her breath. Of course, Ryan could dig into her records. The agency had the lowdown on her entire life, every little thing. If they were going to make this marriage look somewhat authentic, she had to start being more forthcoming. "My sister Jordan stays in National City. She's about 5 years younger than me." Ryan nodded, sensing that this was all Sophie was willing to share for now. And she didn't push. Instead, she launched into a story about the time she'd hacked her high school's computer system to change all the cafeteria menu items to tacos every day. The evening wore on, and they finished their food, cleaned up, and headed to their respective rooms. Sophie was eager for a hot shower to wash away the day, and she enjoyed the waterfall shower head that her ensuite provided. She stepped out of the bathroom 30 minutes later, wrapped in a towel with her hair dripping wet, and nearly jumped out of her skin when she found Ryan lounging on her bed, flipping through a magazine. "Ryan." Sophie clutched the towel tighter around herself. "What are you doing in here?" "Just thought I'd pop in and say goodnight. Nice towel, by the way." Sophie deliberately rolled her eyes, attempting to disregard the heat she felt in her neck. She grabbed her tank and sweats off the bed and hurried to the bathroom to change. "We have to discuss boundaries. You can't just wander in here whenever," she said, coming back in dressed. "I could have been butt naked." "You're right. I'm sorry." Now sitting upright, Ryan's expression turned more serious. "I guess it's been a while since I lived with someone else, especially not a wife. I stayed with an ex once, but she was always somewhere else. I know this is a weird situation, but we need to respect each other's privacy." Sighing, Sophie sat down on the edge of the bed. "Knock before entering, okay?" "I get it." I'll do better. I promise. Ryan's eyes then shifted to the big fish tank in the room. She cocked a brow, looking baffled. You've got to be kidding me. A fish? What are you, 5? For your information, that's an Oscar fish. Not just some fish. What's their name? Oscar. Oscar the Oscar fish. Oh, wow. How creative. Let me guess. If you had a dog, you'd name it Doggy? Or a cat? It'll be Kitty Cat, am I right? Zip it. Sophie gave Ryan a playful shove as she got into bed on the other side and rested her eyes, not at all bothered by Ryan's surprise visit anymore. Her presence felt comfortable. So, earlier you asked to see some of the poetry. I wrote a little something before my shower. Want to hear it? Half asleep and sprawled out, Sophie grunted noncommittally. Taking that as a yes, Ryan dragged her up by the hand and dashed off to her room down the hall. Why did you bring me here? You could have easily grabbed your notebook and come back to my room. Sophie stopped as a yawn let out. Then she sat down and took in the bed that was much larger than hers. Then she looked around at the room and noticed that Ryan must have gotten the master bedroom. I knew I should have brought my stuff up first. Ryan returned from her closet later with a notebook in hand, ignoring the protest. She flopped down beside her, making the taller one bounce on the bed. Okay, here goes. She cleared her throat dramatically. I call this one Wild Impressions. When I first laid eyes on you, I thought, damn, she's fine. But then you pulled a knife out, and I thought, fuck that, never mind. Sophie snorted, and with that, Ryan continued on. You hunted me down like a fox. I drove like my life was on the line. But when we were fighting on the ground, I realized maybe being caught ain't such a crime. By now, Sophie was fully awake and laughing, her earlier exhaustion forgotten. Ryan's expression softened as she read the final lines. Now we're stuck in this together. Two souls bound by fate and chance. I know we started on the wrong foot, but I'm willing to give this a two-step dance. Because with you and Black Bat by my side, I feel like I can finally be free. So let's make this partnership work. But don't forget that you got your last name from me. That was surprisingly sweet, Sophie said, giggling. Suddenly shy, Ryan ducked her head. Yeah, well, don't get used to it. I have a reputation to maintain, you know. Your secret's safe with me, Wilder. Though I still need to talk to Luke about this whole last name ordeal, I think more would have been perfectly fine. From there, they fell into easy conversation, sharing bits and pieces of their pasts and their hopes for the future. Sophie was surprised she hadn't fallen asleep yet, maybe because she was hyper-aware of their bodies. Proximity. Sometimes I feel like I'm constantly trying to prove myself, to show everyone that I'm more than a street kid who got lucky. But no matter what I do, it never seems to be enough. Hell, I wasn't enough for my mother when she gave birth to me. I wonder if I'll ever feel like I truly belong somewhere. Ryan's defenseless comment about not feeling like she was enough for her birth mother resonated heavily with her, and she understood that more than Ryan could ever realize. Even though their backgrounds were quite different, Sophie had struggled with similar feelings of never measuring up in Diane's eyes. However, despite her desire to confide in the younger woman and the surprising sense of security she felt with her new wife, something still held Sophie back from fully opening up. I think it's time for bed, she said abruptly, standing up and moving towards the door. She was suddenly not in the mood to confront emotions she usually kept carefully locked away. Good night, Ryan. Taken aback by the abrupt exit, Ryan stared after her in confusion. Sophie, wait. I'm sorry if I said something wrong. But Sophie just shook her head, her expression closed off. She wasn't ready to talk or hear about deadbeat parents. No, we're good. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm really tired. I'll see you in the morning. Before she could get too far, Ryan called out again. Hey, Soph. Sophie peeked her head back in, a questioning look on her face. Ryan fiddled with the edge of the comforter's thread. Can I ask you something? When Sophie didn't respond but still stood there, Ryan decided that was her go-ahead. I know this whole marriage thing is just for the job, but what about, other needs? Other needs? Yeah, like physical needs. I mean, we're both healthy, good-looking women. It's natural to have urges. Understanding dawned on Sophie's face. Ah, you mean sex? I guess what I'm asking is, are we supposed to be exclusive? Ryan avoided eye contact. Or is it okay if we see other people on the side? Honestly, I hadn't thought about it, Sophie admitted. But if you want to pursue other relationships, I won't stop you. Just be discreet and safe. Really? You'd be okay with that? We're partners, not prisoners. And that wasn't a low blow to you, but I trust you to handle your personal life responsibly. A lazy smile formed on Ryan's lips. Damn. All right. Duly noted. After a beat, she tacked on. Just so we're clear, I'm probably going to fly solo for the time being. Getting frisky with randos is way too dicey in this biz. That's probably wise, Sophie agreed, feeling oddly relieved that Ryan wouldn't be involved with anyone else. Why she was relieved was a topic for another time. And you? Ryan probed, her tone casual yet careful. You planning on playing the field? No, I don't think so. Even if this marriage isn't real, I know it's real by law, kinda, but you know what I mean. All I'm saying is I take commitments seriously. So we're both going dry for the foreseeable future? Guess we'd better stock up on batteries. Ryan chuckled. The conversation faded as they sank into their own thoughts about intimacy. Sophie eventually shared something she'd been thinking about for the last 24 hours. Do you think the agency expects us to actually be together? Like a real couple? I don't know. The way Luke spoke, he seemed to want us to be convincing. But what if there's more to it? Sophie pressed. What if they're hoping we'll develop real feelings for each other? That idea made Ryan's insides flip, but she brushed it off. I don't know, she repeated. And I'm not asking Luke. That man scares me. He'd probably say he's sending me back to the can for asking such a dumb question. It's not dumb, Sophie said, to lighten the mood. But maybe it's best not to overthink it for now. Okay, that's enough deep thoughts for the night. See you later. Split between two rooms, the pair tossed and turned, their brains stuck on thoughts of each other and the presumed final destination the agency envisioned for their marriage. In her room, Ryan sat up, unable to sleep. She reached for her journal, flipping to a blank page. Sophie is something else. Just when you think you understand her, she switches it up on you. Let's be honest. The girl's a straight-up snack, too. I'm talking muscle definition. Tall, hot, eyes that can get a nun wet. The energy is unmatched, and that smile, sheesh, it lights up the whole room. I need to find a way to get her to smile like that more often. But I can't figure her out. She'll be all about business, but then she looks at me in a way that has me wondering if I'm more than just part of the plan for her. But it's too early for all that. Way too early. Ryan paused, tapping her pen against the page. She couldn't remember the last time she'd shared her poetry with anyone. But with Sophie, it had felt right. Natural. Real. She thought of her mama Cora. What would she have thought of all of this? Ryan could almost hear her voice now. That girl's got a good heart, Ryan. I can see it in her eyes. She's been through some things just like you. She's strong. She's a fighter. But you tell her to keep those damn guns out of my house. I don't care if she is protecting the country or Obama. She wished more than anything that Cora was still here to offer guidance. She missed her mama so much. A few doors down, staring blankly upwards at the ceiling, Sophie couldn't get her mind to shut off. She'd mastered the art of keeping people at arm's length. It was her safety net. Yet with Ryan, one day in, she wanted to do the opposite. Who was this woman, and why was she making Sophie feel things?